with all that has been going on in the West Philippine Sea and the pogo industry, the big question now is, do Filipinos still trust China? And as it turns out, an overwhelming majority of Filipinos, 91% to be exact, distrust China. That's according to an OCTA research survey conducted from March 11 to 14. Only 8% of respondents say that they feel a fair amount of trust towards China. OCTA research notes an upward trend in distrust ratings of China among Filipinos from 2022. From 61% distrust rating that year, it steadily climbed to 90% in 2023 up until 2024. Filipinos also see China as the country posing the greatest threat to the Philippines at 76%. That's followed by Russia at just 9%, and then North Korea, Pakistan, and Japan with 2% each. OCTA's fourth quarter survey, meanwhile, shows that 61% of Filipinos agree with the Marcos Jr. administration's response to the West Philippine Sea dispute.
Here to talk to us more about their findings, we have with us on the show OCTA Research Fellow, Ranjit Rai. Prof, magandang gabi po.
Hi, good evening to all our televiewers and to you ladies, Sean, Gretchen, and Maricel.
Good evening.
Good evening. Sir, una sa lahat, where can we attribute yung pagtaas ng distrust ng Pilipino towards China? Of course, there's the issue of West Philippine Sea, pero meron din kasing mga issue on spice and pogos.
Well, it could be all of that, we didn't ask why in our surveys, but definitely a lot of it has to do with the tension, the tensions in the West Philippine Sea between the Philippines and China. And you have to understand that when you look at the survey data on trust, and you look at the survey data on support for the administration's actions, or response in the West Philippine Sea, they all happened during the Marcos administration, specifically July 20. The numbers increased in July of 2023. For example, when we talk about support for the Marcos administration's response in the West Philippine Sea, largely because the media was included. There was more information. The media was there to take videos of the harassment, and I think a lot of people became more aware. It also was seen in our surveys that Filipinos' awareness of the dispute in the West Philippine Sea also increased for the most part of July 2023. And when you look at the survey also, most Filipinos have, if not all Filipinos have a position on the issue. And it's fairly clear that they distrust China and that they see China as the greatest threat to the country at the moment.
Okay, Prof, let's take a look at several numbers. This distrust rating started at 59 during the start of the Marcos administration, and then it went to 75 in February of 2022, tapos biglang naging 61, and then back to 70 plus level by October 2022. What exactly caused that dip? Yun nakikita natin yun, 75, 61, and 71.
Yeah, I think that was, I think if I'm not mistaken, that is February 2022. For the people who are watching, we've been doing this probe for the last almost 2 years, worth of surveys. We only released it today because we had a webinar with Strat-based ADR and the Australian Embassy. And we thought that we would slowly release numbers that we have been calling about the West Philippine Sea dispute and Philippine-China relations. And I think that dip in trust ratings, if I'm not mistaken, we're referring to the trust ratings, or the improvement in trust ratings would be in Feb 2022 related to the fact that China opened some bridges. And so maybe there was some positive effect, But by and large, the trend since then has been deteriorating as far as trust is concerned.
Yung ba yung friendship bridge sa ano?
Sa may samal? Yung po ba?
Hindi sa Binondo.
I think it's
Sa Binondo.
we're trying to find out, but
Okay.
what we do know is that this is in the National Capital Region where there's a slight increase. this was the opening of the Binondo bridges. Do you
Ayun na
remember
nga.
that?
Okay.
That period, no, when the bridges were finally completed, Feb to April yan eh. So I think we captured that. But ever since that time, trust in China has been deteriorating. And now we have 9 out of 10, almost all Filipinos distrust China. It's a more expansive probe. We also look at, you see, one thing is to establish if there is a national security threat, no? The other was also to establish if there were also an economic threat. And in the same report we submitted to media, 44% disagree that China has a positive impact on the economy. So there's, it's a view. China is both an economic and, security threat to the country. So these perceptions have deteriorated, no? And it's up to some extent galvanized also. They become much larger majorities over time. And I guess it has to do really with the tensions in the West Philippine Sea and the more assertive stance of the current administration with regard to asserting our rights in the West Philippine Sea. So the change, the pivot of the administration, the change in policy and programs, I think all contributed to a heightened awareness of the tensions in the region, and therefore a more negative view against China.
What is really interesting to me, Professor Ranjit, na-realize ko after going through the survey results that Filipinos are actually taking note. Kumbaga, hindi bingi-bingihan at bulog-bulagan lahat because lumalabas din that mataas ang suporta ng public sa approach ng Marcos administration na maging mas aggressive sa West Philippine Sea, pero hindi sila precisely pabor na puro violence lang at gulo ang nagyayari. Gusto nila meron ding diplomacy track. Can you tell us more about this insight? Kasi ang lumalabas parang nasa Class D and Class E yung mga nagbigay ng ganyang grade o punto. What can you tell us about that?
Okay, interesting. Although we don't have data shown to the public here, but we asked everyday Filipinos, our kababayans, if you were given a list of measures to prioritize, what would you what do you think should government prioritize to resolve the conflict in the West Philippine Sea? And the top 3 are: number 1, 7 out of 10 Filipinos say we should assert our rights in the West Philippine Sea. That's an important point. Assert our rights in the West Philippine Sea by expanding naval patrols and troop deployment in the area. We're already doing that. Number 2, we should obviously have a dual track, not just of expanding our military presence in the area, but also ensuring that we utilize all diplomatic and peaceful means to resolve the conflict. That's at 70%, 72%, yeah. And third, the top 3 kasi yan, the third is to modernize the armed forces, which also explains, because the government is doing exactly that, why more people now support or agree with the response of the Marcos administration when it comes to the West Philippine Sea.
Let's go to the other side of it with what the administration is doing now in terms of strategy in dealing with issues of the West Philippine Sea. Do you have specifics on which strategies Filipinos agree and disagree on?
Yeah, that's it, precisely it. We gave them a menu of interventions the government can do. And among I already talked about the top 3. One is to assert our rights. That's the first thing. Assert the rights through military action and through diplomacy. Third is to modernize our armed forces, improve its capability. Fourth is exactly to expand joint maritime patrols with our allies. Fifth is to expand the discussion about dispute in the West Philippine Sea, and not just bilaterally but multilaterally. So Filipinos have a sense, although they may seem quiet, in the discourse at the moment, but they're talking very loudly in the surveys. The everyday Filipino has an opinion, and I think that's something that, apart from the actual opinion, and the trends, increasing trends of distrust against China, is the fact that Filipinos have an opinion in a time when globally citizens are apathetic. And I think that's something that's positive about what has happened. No? That everyday Filipinos are engaged and aware about the issue, and they have a position. And we have other surveys that have come out on the issue over the last 2 or 3 quarters, and it's been fairly consistent. There is no gray area as far as Filipinos are concerned. They support their government and the government's response in the West Philippine Sea. They disagree with the aggression being, utilized by China against our own assets, our own personnel in the West Philippine Sea, and that is why they distrust. That is why they say that China is the greatest threat for now at 76%.
But Prof, let me go back to the numbers. Kasi based dun sa survey ninyo, pinakamataas ang NCR when it comes dun sa having perception that China was the greatest threat in the country. 86% siya. And then next is Balance Luzon, before yung Visayas, and then Mindanao. And as what Sean mentioned earlier, malaki yung percentage dun sa Class D and E na malaki yung paniniwala na threat yung China. Do we have an explanation bakit ganon yung lumabas sa survey?
Well, yun nga, let's complete that image. Mas mababa ng konti. The only number below 70% was in Class ABC. Okay? But I think Class D and E, they see this as not just a security threat, but a threat to the economy. They also look at it as a threat to our kababayans physically. When you see pictures of our fishermen being harassed in the West Philippine Sea, I think it's not just become a political issue. It's become an emotional issue for many Filipinos. Of course, one can question if they actually truly understand the issue. And we know the issue is far more complex than what we see on television. But then again, they've decided to take a position on the issue when we ask them through the surveys. And for me, that's important. No? It's also important for us to inform our neighbors, our friends, observers in the area, how Filipinos think. That's why surveys are important. And by the way, our findings are not very far away from other surveys that have come out with the same data, although much earlier. So it's a fairly consistent view that most Filipinos distrust China at the moment because of what's happening in the West Philippine Sea. And they think about it as the greatest threat to the Philippines at the moment. And that because of that, they also have an opinion of what government should do, what it should prioritize as measures. And because government is doing the top 3 measures at the moment in some form or the other, they have shown their support for the Marcos administration, at least majority. There are still people who are undecided. It's still an amount of them who are undecided. But definitely, the disagreement with the government's response is quite low now.
Okay. I was wondering lang, Professor, if you have any data points that would conversely say or show that itong distrust or mistrust sa China ay nagtatranslate into a higher trust in the United States. May ganun po ba?
Yeah, we have that data. Actually, it's the report that I gave out to the media. Yes, just to give you a sense, I'll just look at the data points here. I think right now, when you talk about trust in the United States, it's around 87%. Just to give you a sense, the trust for China is 8%, and the trust for the United States is 87%.
Very stark. Okay.
For adult Filipinos. Now, you have to understand the deterioration in the trust ratings of China started in February 2022, where it was at its highest. We think it's because of the bridges, but it started from 38, now it's down to 8. That was from February 22 to March 2024. It went down 30 points. So, it has really to do with the aggression that we're seeing in the West Philippine Sea, the intensification of conflict in that area. And Filipinos are clear about who they're supporting and their position on the issue.
Prof.
So it's not true that there's a dissonance as far as the public is concerned when it comes to the West Philippine Sea. I think there's hardly any gray area here.
Prof, gusto ko lang clarify, no? Kasi I understand China is viewed as a security threat, but the economic threat, what does that mean exactly? That Filipinos view China as an economic threat? Or that
Yeah,
they
well,
view
that's what
the
the survey
response?
results are saying. 44%, nearly 50%. It's also in the report that I submitted to media. But the proper interpretation is this: that 44% of Filipinos do not see China as a positive impact on our economy, and it's been increasing. But it's to a lesser degree, it's there's still room, no? Although the number of people who actually think, no, that China has a positive effect on the economy, it is in single digits na lang, no? I think it's around so if 44%, no, I'm sorry, if 44% disagree that China has a positive impact on economic relations, only 13% agree. So it's so when you look at the threat perception, people see China not just as a security threat because of the maritime tensions in the West Philippine Sea. They're now seeing it as a threat to our economy. Of course, the reality is China and the Philippines have robust economic relations, but this is how Filipinos perceive China now. We don't know if the start escalating because of the perceive that as one of those issues, negative impact of Philippine-China economic relations. But of course, we serious observers also know that China-Philippine relations, economic relations is robust on many other fronts.
Yes,
We're trading with them. China is an important economic partner. But it's important to note that this is how Filipinos perceive, rightly or wrongly, this is how they
yes.
perceive the economic relations, the economic impact of relations with China. So 13% say it's positive, 44% say it's not, and the rest are undecided.
All right. Maraming salamat. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, sharing with us those numbers and interpretations. OCTA Research Fellow Ranjit Rai.